My focus in this book and in my work is on a certain sort of neighborhood that's in the center of these transitions. And it may be easiest for me just to start in the middle of one such neighborhood. Let me start with a place called Bulaq al-Dakrour, which is a neighborhood in Cairo, just to the west of the center. It was, until the mid-70s, not much of anything, sort of a patch of wasteland, and then very quickly filled up with a absolute warren of self-built housing of the sandstone variety, rising 4 or 5 stories above impossibly narrow alleys, often not wide enough to fit a car, just enough for a couple motorcycles or something, entirely built by people who'd arrived from the villages of Upper Egypt, seeking opportunities that were better than the minimal life of the village, and moving out because of the improvements of agriculture happening there and so on, and trying to find the very lowest forms of an urban living. The neighborhood manifests itself as a haphazard labyrinth of narrow alleys and noises and smells and endless activity. And the businesses on the ground are every manner of street selling, repurposing of found rubbish, rebuilding of automobiles. It's kind of known to many people in Cairo as the place you go to get your car fixed for nothing and so on, usually using parts found from some wrecked car at the side of the road or something like that. An improvised economy that has grown very large within this very medieval structured slum. And increasingly a class of people who've made it enough, whose ice cream shop has done well enough, whose car repair business has done well enough, whose little factory making parts and so on inside it has done well enough that they have had aspirations and have had frustrations. This type of neighborhood is known as an ashwayat in Egypt, a word that developed over the last 30 years, which basically, as I understand it, means chaotic place. And there are about 70 of these neighborhoods containing up to 100,000 people each in Cairo, making up about 1/3 of Cairo's population. And most better off Cairo people wouldn't dare set foot there and would look down at them from their buildings in their neater yet still crowded streets downtown as being sort of a threat to their existence. Now, on January 25th of this year, it was Bulaq that provided the first crowds of young people who gathered and marched and occupied Tahrir Square. The organizers of the demonstrations, who are not from this ashwayat class, knew that the young people of Bulaq were particularly angry and frustrated, that they had a history of challenging the Hosni Mubarak regime. Why were they angry and frustrated? Because the residents of Bulaq, and like many such neighborhoods, had used their neighborhood from the beginning as a platform to propel themselves into urban life. They had saved a lot from the village to be there. It was not, while they appeared to be the very poorest people in the city, they were often the most invested people from the villages who'd made a start, and they were using this neighborhood to finance the development and survival of their villages. And they found themselves, once they made a little bit of money, constantly frustrated and thwarted by the established middle class of Cairo. This was the regime-supporting old middle class who had benefited from the closed, nationalized economy of the post-colonial years, had got the good jobs in the factories that were nationally owned and then later came to be army-owned, but were still in a protected, closed economy. The regime had damaged this neighborhood's prospects in a number of ways by keeping economic and educational opportunities closed to themselves, but also physically. One thing about this neighborhood is that it should be a 5-minute walk from central Cairo. In most parts of it are sort of a half-hour walk because there's a whole lot of canals and railway tracks and so on that you kind of have to walk a long distance around to the nearest bridge to get to. This both isolates people from the bottom-rung urban jobs in the city, but it also isolates their small businesses and shops and restaurants and so on from the consumer markets of Cairo.